Welcome to the All the Hats We Wear podcast. Do you want to be more joyful, productive, and fulfilled? Over the past decade, I've discovered the single most important skill that you need to transform all of the areas of your life. That skill is to unleash your creativity. My name is Scott Snow, and I'm a dad, music therapist, meditator, lifelong journaler, world-class problem solver, All the Hats We Wear founder, backgammon aficionado, expert in bad movies, and the Willy Wonka of creativity, just to name a few of the hats that I wear. After listening to this episode, start transforming your life by visiting the website allthehatswewear.com. On the site, you'll see a free 1-hour video. It's a training course, and this will help you unleash your creativity. There are 5 modules in this training: identify your roles, clarify your goals, uncover your mission, manage your large projects, and ultimately unleash your creativity. You're meant to do great things. Here are the skills you need to do them. Welcome to episode 131 of the All the Hats We Wear podcast. Today's episode is called Act Like a 2-Year-Old and Be Creative. One of the most important analogies that I talk about in my training is to imagine that you're a child playing, having a lot of fun, sitting there alone on the rug, and you dump out all of your favorite toys all around you. And then you're just taking your time, you're playing with all the different toys and creating scenarios and just enjoying yourself, where time kind of evaporates and you're just in the moment completely. You get in that flow state. This is what you want to do with identifying the different hats that you wear. And my course will walk you through that. 4 different types of roles that you play, and even roles that you might not be doing now, but you're going to be kind of like a placeholder role, future roles, and a role that you can adopt right now and start to get that identity that you're playing that role, even if you're really not. So it's kind of a thinking big is an important piece of this. Now, of course, kids love to play, and I love watching kids play. The creativity is like just off the charts when kids are playing. And of course, adults need to play as well. And I started to think about, how could I address all the different hats that I wear in just one small, short span of time? And the thought I had originally was, like I wanted to start working out and exercising and maybe doing yoga and stretching. And I said, well, could there be like just one big move that you just continually do and address all the body parts, the main muscle groups? And this became my process for, I call Round the World. And it's named after the basketball game where you have to hit a shot around the key in order, in sequence. It's very important. So I said, what if we have a little, like a web search or just an allotted time that you could have as a routine that you do every week, where you address, even in a small, tiny way, each of those different hats that you wear. Maybe you do a web search and just start asking questions. One of my roles is as a meditator. I do Transcendental Meditation. And it could just be a simple question, who else around me does TM? Where's the nearest training center? What celebrities do TM and what do they talk about? What are the interviews? What is the research behind TM? So any number of those questions could lead me on a little rabbit hole for deepening my relationship with that role, which is what you want to do. You want to cultivate these different hats that you wear all the time. So similarly, when I was interested in that and interested in doing some research for this podcast episode, I started to look up play and the science behind play. And I stumbled upon an excellent website called the National Institute of Play. And this guy, the founder, Dr. Stuart Brown, he talked about 8 play personalities. And especially as an adult, you've got to have some time to play creatively. So here are the 8 play personalities, and I'll leave a link in the liner notes so that you could take your own self-survey and discover your primary play personality. Here are the 8 ones. Collector. He used the example of Jay Leno, collecting old cars. Competitor, that his example was Tom Brady. Creator, artist, like a Steve Jobs that really wants to create something. Director, like a Oprah Winfrey, who wants to help you direct your life and provide structure for others. Explorer, if you're a scientist, then you're an explorer play personality. Joker, example was Jerry Seinfeld, where everything you're looking at in a little bit of a twist, like that too. Kinesthete, a choreographer, for an example, someone who needs to move to play. And a storyteller, someone like Steven Spielberg, who I have to do a special nod to him for his 50th anniversary of Jaws right now. As you can see, I'm a huge Jaws fan. I often try to be creative when I'm reading the paper, and I'm passionate about reading the paper, actually. I find it much more creative than watching the news on TV because I can choose what I want to dig into and what I want to spend time on with a written paper, whereas it's kind of dictated to you with spoken news on TV or on the radio. So one article I came across, it was something about where do black men live, and they had a picture that really struck me, and it was these guys were sitting around a circle, kind of like a support group, and they had it was like a blanket on the floor with all of these objects on it. And I guess it was just showing like a grid of the city and, where black men were living at that time. And this really got my imagination flowing. Seeing that, I've always been fascinated with dioramas, where you see the whole city just on a big table, like an architecture team is looking over the whole city. I love to see a miniature version of all that, and you can see from up above. And actually, that's another one of the key elements of All the Hats We Wear creativity system, is that once you identify the different hats that you wear, then you have that kind of eagle eye perspective from up above. You're not in it, and it's hard to manage something when you're knee deep in it. But when you have that perspective, now you can really take a moment and think. So it reminds me of one of the projects I did for a life coaching program I did, where I took a little octagon. It was like a 10-inch wide octagon, a toy for kids, and it had the little figurines. But I took that octagon and I put a little representative tiny object, no bigger than a little toy figurine, for each of my roles. And I had them all in that octagon so I could see they were in a structure, they were all contained. And by seeing that picture of all the guys sitting around this thing, and I'll include a link to that article as well, it just makes it more concrete. Things that you need to be concrete are concrete. And then it made me think of, well, what if they were like large chess pieces that a support group talking about all the hats we wear could then look at all the different objects and maybe set two against each other. These are the two hats that I wear that are the most conflicting. And how can we, brainstorm some resources to help that person? Or even I think of the Star Wars or Harry Potter, like the living chess boards, where they battle each other. So that really got my imagination flowing. This idea of using representative symbols is really important in art. So why not use it in your self-development? One of the breakthroughs that I've made with this All the Hats We Wear creativity system is having a capture notebook with you all the time. And I've got mine here. It's really just an art sketchbook. I get them at Staples. I think they're $9 each. And I got my anarchy symbol because I believe creativity kind of follows no rules. And then I literally just have this around me all day long. And I just put some things down. I'll just scratch some ideas down as they come. So I don't have to flip through different tabs or have a system that slows me down or anything like that. Find my phone and turn it on and get to the app. I just literally just jot it down and it's done. I also like to have this Pentel Energel Liquid Gel Ink 0.7 steel tip pen. And that's the one I like. It has a nice feel on the paper. This paper of the sketchbook I'm talking about is kind of textured, like any art book. So it has a nice feel when you jot it down, and I think that's important. You engage the sensory experience, and that also starts to invigorate your creativity, I think. I found. I just bought a few extras. So I have the real brand. It's called You Create Sketch Premium Drawing Paper. DixonTiconderogaCompany.com. And it's a 75 sheet, perforated sheets, and acid free. I like it. It's 12 inches by 9 inches. So engage that sensory and you'll start getting those creative ideas right away. I watched a Julia Child video, and she was much older in her career, towards the end of her career in life, and she had a guest on who made some kind of dessert. And Julia tried this dessert and it was so damn good. She literally had no words, and she was just started to cry, and she said that's a triumph. And it was just so nice to see, especially someone who's older, like a real veteran, a real visionary in the field, to be kind to someone else like that. I thought that was inspiring. I'll leave a link to that video. I've always had an interest in creating my own business. So this All the Hats We Wear is that. And it's so rewarding. I often listen to commercials just to learn about marketing. And there was a commercial on the other day I thought was really good. It hit it right on the head. And it was from the Great Wolf Lodge, which is a place, at some resort you can go and bring the kids in. It's all kinds of water parks. So we brought the kids many times, and it was awesome. Their USP, their unique selling proposition, was book it today and strengthen the pack, which I thought was perfect. Like you're really thinking about the family and taking time away from the busyness and develop that connection on a more intimate level. Love that. The other day I was thinking about vision of leaders. And, I've experienced a lot of effective leaders in my past and ineffective. And I find that the ineffective ones, it's almost, if I were to make an analogy, it would be like they're in the dark with a tiny, weak little flashlight, like a mini 3-inch flashlight, and they're just sort of looking around in the dark and they're of no help at all. I think a leader, you have to have that vision. You have to turn on the lights, the floodlights, so that you can see ahead of you where you're at. Otherwise, how are you any help to other people if you don't have vision? And I think this All the Hats We Wear system will help you to have that vision on what's most important. Another reason for identifying the different roles is that you might, especially if you create your own business, you're going to have a lot of different roles that you are going to have to assume. Marketing and business and accounting, websites, public speaking is one of my roles. So I need to constantly get better at that and keep learning. And I saw an example of someone who seemed very buttoned up online. I watched a YouTube TED Talk. And although this person was very knowledgeable, they weren't really that engaging, in my opinion, and kind of buttoned up and stodgy. And then there was one moment they make a little side joke that was really funny, and the person laughed, and you saw a genuine look in that person that made you think, well, that's really what that person's about. It's not this buttoned up deliverer of important information in a dry way. That was the real person, and it was only a glimpse that you saw of it. And I find that I struggle with that as well. That's my big struggle with public speaking. I'm thinking about what I want to say, and I want to be helpful, but also you're missing a piece of yourself. So that's a constant kind of thing I'm aware of. So if you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments. I was talking to a few old friends that have now retired, and they were kind of telling me the inside scoop of what it's like to be retired. And this kind of got me on a track of outlining a new product, like a life purpose training or workshop for someone who's just newly retired. And one of the fellows I was talking to, he was saying there was different stages that he went through when he first retired, because he was a very successful corporate guy and had a lot of, responsibilities. So he says, well, first you're like, this is awesome. I can just sleep in. I don't have any responsibilities at all. I can just chill and sleep late. And he goes, well, that gets old pretty quick. In your next stage, he says, I need some projects. I need some things to do. So then he says he starts having like a dozen different projects that he wants to do, and this plan for that, and I'm going to do this. And none of it gets done. Then he feels depressed. Then he said he started to get into a more fitting stage where he was able to select a couple projects and be involved and still be chill. So kind of finding that balance. But he had to go through those different stages. I stumbled upon a strange video on social media. It was a Japanese barber, a female barber, working on a guy and giving him the whole treatment, the shave, and it was like a 1-hour spa treatment, haircut. But it was an ASMR video, which they kind of fascinate me and disgust me in the same thought. Because especially if the microphone is way too close, it's really kind of just gives me the heebie-jeebies. But I found it to be pretty interesting, and I do find that going to the barber is definitely a sensory experience. I like the smell of the talcum, and it is kind of like a self-primping, like you're taking care of yourself, and it's kind of interesting to see men do it, because usually men don't really seem to go for that too much. But then the guy next to me will be like in the hot towel on his face with just his nostrils showing, and he's just relaxing in this really hot towel. Although that makes me think of the Three Stooges when they were supposed to be, they were supposed to own a saloon, but actually it was a salon. So they had to act like hairdressers and beauticians. And they had 3 women that came in, and they ended up, having cement on their face and like no hair. And so I always think about that when I see someone with a hot towel on their face. I do remember though, I think it was about probably my early 20s. I was getting a haircut, and the person said, do you want me to shave the back of your neck? And I was like, I guess, all right. And they did put a very hot towel on there to loosen things up. And it was really fun. It was nice. It was hard to ignore. So that kind of was the start for my little fascination with spa treatments. I'm a big reader, whether I'm listening to audiobooks on Spotify Premium, which I highly recommend. They have so many damn books on there. It's awesome. Every time I'm interested in a book, it's on audio on Spotify Premium. Well worth it. But I'm reading this as well, The Magic of Thinking Big by David J. Schwartz. And I'm just starting it, but I think it's kind of interesting. Like, it's not the usual just, he talks about how belief is different than wishful thinking. You can't just go, well, I want $1 million and have it come to you. And the whole manifestation thing, I'm not so much of a fan on. I believe in the steps you have to do, but in putting in the hard work. But what did catch my attention with this book is that having that belief can lead to other things. It's like planting the seed. Like, you really believe that you could become a doctor or whatever, and then your belief can help you with those little decisions along the way, little opportunities, little synergies that come your way. People see that you believe and they want to help out. Whereas the opposite, I remember there was a person from my past who I wanted to help this guy, and I remember lending him a book, and he never returned it. Like, it was 6 months later, he still wouldn't return it. And I even had to ask him, do you have that book? And then it became like a negative, like I'm being a jerk. And finally that person returned the book, which it didn't really matter to me. I liked the book, so I actually had already bought another copy because I wanted that book in my library. And then it was I got a snide remark when they finally returned it to me. So that kind of attitude, I think, turns away opportunities. Who's going to contribute to that attitude? Whereas the belief and having that belief system behind what you want to achieve, people would like to be a part of it. So I think that was the most important concept that I came across in this book. And this is an old, tried and true book. I've heard about it for years. 6 million copies sold. Acquire the secrets of success. Achieve everything you've ever wanted. One exercise that I use every day for my creativity is something I call word salad. And that's where I just create stories, a quick, 2 or 3 page story. It doesn't really have to make sense. I often write about Jaws or horror movies or any number of things. Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Martha Stewart. I like to write about her. Anyway, what you do, and actually what I do every day, is write down what I call color words. And these are just words and phrases that are kind of uncommon and interesting. When I'm reading the paper, I jot them down. And what I'll do is take one of those sheets, and then when I'm on my lunch break or something, I'll just look at this sheet filled with these color words, and I'll just select 10, and I have to put those 10 in this story. There's one story thread that I have that is a Russian 4-star restaurant where the host has a special skill of getting together someone of the living and someone from the dead. So maybe Nicki Minaj has dinner with Abe Lincoln and the crazy conversation ensues. There's a lot of dialogue in these stories because that, I find, makes it easier to sneak in all of those color words. So it's like kind of my crossword puzzle for the day. And it's fun, and I think it certainly increases your writing skill and your vocabulary. And it's just a creative exercise to say, I need to crowbar these phrases into this little mini story. And how can I do that? How can I connect them? That's kind of fun. Also, I've been using a software program called the ARC screenwriting software. I think it was $60 for the year, and it's well worth it. It's a really nice format, very easy to use. It's really for real screenwriting. And although the story that I'm doing is not a screenplay, it's just a story, but there's a lot of different threads. There's about a dozen different story threads. So it's sort of like the old Star Wars where you leave on a cliffhanger and then the next week, you continue on. So that's how I do it with all these separate stories. But I do suggest checking out that ARC screenwriting software. Even when I decided not to make it a screenplay, I still continued to use it because you can change the borders. I made the borders a lot wider because a real screenplay is very, it's like a 4-inch wide margin in the center of the page for dialogue in a screenplay. And I opened that up to the usual. And on the left, you have a whole list of the outline. So maybe it would be story number 18 of the restaurant that I'm talking, the magical restaurant. And so you can zero right in and put your next episode right in there. You see that on the left. So that's very helpful. Yesterday, I was reading an article about Jeff Bezos. I guess he's getting married, and they're taking their super yacht, and it's this whole on their own island, and it's just, money is no object. So it's all luxury, all, lots of money. And I've always been intrigued by luxury. And I actually think there should be more with like virtual reality, like those virtual goggles. I'm surprised that hasn't caught on more. I mean, you could be in the front row of the NBA Finals and watch the game, or be in the back row at a Harvard University lecture. Be right there. So I'm not sure why it hasn't taken off more, because I think that's awesome. But also with taking a vacation, why couldn't you just strap on some goggles and get all the feels of everything that you would like to experience, and you don't have the big bill? If your mind experiences it, I mean, it basically happened in your brain, from brain chemistry, right? One of my favorite movies is The Cell with Jennifer Lopez. And that's I've never seen a movie like it, but that's where you have a little technology where you just, two people lay on a bed and they're wired up, and they can go inside, one can go inside the other person's mind. So Jennifer Lopez goes into a serial killer's mind to try to find where they hid someone. Someone is like drowning in a room, over 24 hours. But that's such a creative movie. When you see inside that serial killer's mind, it's like incredible. But I do think that's underused. Like, you could literally have a great experience. It could even just be guided meditation. You close your eyes and you're sitting in a room and someone walks you through, this great hotel or this great treatment or something fancy. I think there should be more of that. Well, my buddy Brad Marchand of the Bruins, I'm from Massachusetts, so he was traded to the Florida Panthers, which Boston is not happy about. He was definitely a fan favorite. And now he just won the Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers, who have won 2 years in a row. And so I say congratulations to him. He seems like a great guy. His nickname is Little Ball of Hate. But he's fun. I do remember a video, because they always had like a Meet the Bruins kind of video series on TV, and it would follow them on the road, and it was always pretty interesting. But of course he loves his captain, Patrice Bergeron, who's now retired. And they brought, I think it was around Valentine's Day. So the video went with Brad to the local CVS or whatever, and he looked through all the cards. And what struck me about Brad buying Patrice a Valentine's card, which was very nice and cute, was how pure he was about it. Like, he wasn't thinking about other things. He was really just, all right, I got to find the card. No, that one doesn't do it. Nope, not that one, not that one. Yeah, that's a good one. And then he goes back to the hotel and he writes a very heartwarming letter, heartfelt letter to his buddy. And then he gave it to him, and it was just very nice, But what struck me was just how it was very simple and pure, this good deed was. So that stuck out to me. I just joined a new Facebook group called Splatterpunk, which is books that are really kind of extreme horror, and they're kind of like, there's no rules, and it's pretty wild. And I started listening to one of the books, and it is wild. So it was sort of just nice to have. It's kind of fun to me when the bottom drops out, when the rules fall to the wayside, and it's kind of freeing in a way. So I'm checking that out. I do love horror movies, so I figured, why not get into horror fiction? And I think this is just an extreme version, but I'm always trying out new things. I've been doing my meditation, my Transcendental Meditation every day. And I do find sometimes it's jarring in that it's so effortless. And we're not used to doing things in an effortless way. Like, we heap so many different levels of stress on everything that we do. That's the best word I can describe is jarring, when we dial it way down. And sometimes I actually think about kind of a dial, like a huge circular dial, and it's on 100, and I literally have to bring it down to like 2 or 3 out of 100. And it's almost like that's the electrical voltage to my body and my mind. And I have to do that, because then I'm at the point where I don't even have enough electricity, enough current to form thoughts. I'm just in the moment and in that bliss, that transcendental bliss state. So it's pretty interesting. And I suggest pursuing Transcendental Meditation training. Just visit tm.org to find your local trainer. You do have to have the training, because that's a whole experience in itself. I do recommend that, of course, as well. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode, and this was an interesting one, I believe. We covered a lot of different things, and I did make a switch from focusing on life purpose to creativity, because I do always feel that creativity is my greatest strength, and that's the thing I feel the most at home with, so probably I should stick with that. And then actually with creativity, kind of everything goes. So that also fits. I hope that you begin to learn to act like a 2-year-old, do some play, list out the different hats that you wear. I suggest 15 to 20 different hats, and follow the course so that you're able to identify the hats that you wear, and then make some time each week to curate, almost like a garden, or like the example with the 2-year-old, your favorite toys are all these different hats. And how can you make tiny improvements for each one of them each week? Let me know how it goes in the comments.
Start transforming your life by visiting my website, allthehatswewear.com. That website has a free 1-hour video course that will help you identify your roles, clarify your goals, uncover your mission, manage large projects, and unleash your creativity. We'll see you at the website, allthehatswewear.com.